Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming, a more title update for Wilds. With today's update, we have the new addition of Arch-Tempered Jin dahaad after he dropped way faster than the previous ATs. Because of that, is here before we even got to the Dual Blades builds for the update. And that brought major changes from Gog and so on. Jin does affect things though. We're looking at some very efficient agitator pieces and one very efficient coalescence piece that's going to be interesting for one of our sets. Meanwhile, Gog itself obviously shifted the meta for weapons and the sets, so we're using that thanks to the active skills that we can get on them. So while we have a variety of build options for you once again, leading up to the best as always, please use the timestamps where needed. But overall though, Dual Blades has gained a lot from both AT Jin and TU4 in general. A big boost to your effective raw, but also your element at the same time. This is on top of the nice quality of life changes we saw in a surprising change with the launch of Title Update 4. Things like the amount of weapon sharpness consumed while performing your focus strike in either version of it has been reduced. They made adjustments to keep Demon Boost mode active even after sheathing your weapon. And some slick stuff like the fact that we can exit the Demon mode mid-movement after performing a Demon dodge while in the Demon Boost mode. So yeah, some nice quality of life for sure, especially being able to sheath the weapon. So along with those pretty amazing updates, we have element sets with higher effective element that's actually got impressive raw behind it. These are going to be your best options against any reasonable element weak target, but especially obviously super weak targets like Gog in our current long-term grind, especially phase 3 where he's super weak to dragon. So it really is an element update for Dual Blades. So as usual, a quick mention of the food buff. As a Dual Blades player, you need to be leaning into evade window to make your perfect evade timing easier. There was a buff in a recent title update where it feels like you just have one permanently now. They made the iframe window more forgiving, but you still want to eat meals for Tumbler Meal. The Tumbler Meal, as it says, extends your invulnerability period, so it's like giving yourself evade windows by eating. Tumbler Meal low is like 2 levels and high is like 3. And so you can eat this specific feast for the attack bonus, defense and element resistance, and also get the Tumbler Meal all at once. So make sure you do this because we're going to assume you're eating the Tumbler Meal buff and not worry about evade window in the builds. Last thing to mention then, as always, is a quick credit to Josh for his work on the sets and deciding these builds by comparing the math and coming to the final conclusion we're showing today. On top of that though, continued thank you to the data miner who did the RNG Talisman system. That information we still lean on. So thank you to DTL North for that. With that said, let's get into it. Let's begin with the Gogma Artian setup. There is a raw setup today and there is an element setup today. We're starting with the raw sets, and so of course we'll start with the raw Gogma Artian. For that then, it's pretty simple in regards to like your base Artian from before. You 1 sharpness and 4 attack. But of course you're going to be upgrading it. So for your reinforcement bonuses, you're looking for something like this, where you've got 2 attack boost EX for the plus 12, the 1 line of sharpness for another EX, and then 2 lines which are attack boost 3, so plus 9 on both of those. However, if you roll one of those attack boost 3 as an affinity EX instead, that is a completely valid alternative because we are addressing affinity through the builds as much as we can. So a bit of flexibility there, which is nice. In regards to the decorations that we're using, it's a little bit different now. For most of these sets, you'll want Crit Boost 3, Ele Attack 3 of the correct element, obviously, with 1 line of Handicraft on the back of it, and then Crit Element with Handicraft on the back of it. The reason for this is because with the new plus 50 sharpness, we can get away without having to use Razor Sharp. This then allows us to get much more effective output, which is obviously fantastic. If you find yourself needing to sharpen more often than you'd like, then you can go back to Razor Sharp. That is your call. The only thing I want to mention in this section as well is that Lagiacrus would usually have a unique Thunder set with the Lagiacrus Dual Blades. Because the Gog Artian is just so good, like 257 base raw here, the Lagi specific set is now dead, so it's all Gog Artian. We begin with a set that doesn't engage with RNG, so it doesn't require a Gogma Artian with the correct active skills, and it doesn't require an RNG Talisman. A great starting base point for anyone interested in Dual Blades in Title Update 4, especially with Jin dahaad and his Gamma set. But before I explain the set, there's one specific change you need to make for the weapon. In the offensive decorations, you're going to be wanting to use the Expert Dual decoration. This is because it's going to give you 3 levels of critical eye, so 12% affinity, and this set needs more affinity. It'll benefit more from this than crit boost. With that explained then, here's the set. You have the Guardian Ebony Beta Helm. Make sure this is transcended so it has better decoration slots. The new Udra Gamma chest piece, again Guardian Ebony Beta Gloves, again transcended. The new Jin dahaad waist with its incredible 3 levels of agitator. And lastly, the Gamma of Duna legs. The crafted talisman then, with no RNG, is 3 levels of Adrenaline Rush, that's the counterattack charm 3. These are the decorations that I use to achieve this skill list. Here's the first page you can look at, here's the second page, you can pause if you need to, and the final page. Do note that my weapon has 1 level of Lord Soul on it. You won't have that with the no RNG version, not required at all. But this set does have 3 levels of Guts Tenacity. I'll also mention you can use your 1 slots however you like, get some Divine Blessing, or say go for Constitution for better stamina recovery. It's up to you. Here's a quick rundown of the math to show you how it works out. 257 base raw, multiplied by 5% thanks to Guts Tenacity, getting you to 269.85. These flat increases get you to 344.85, and then we multiply that by 32% from white sharpness, getting you to 455.2. We have 39% reliable affinity from these sources, including the crit I3 that we put in our weapon to lose crit boost. So, since we have no crit boost, that's a 25% damage increase, 39% of the time from the affinity. Multiply that by our last number then, and that gets you on the dot 500 effective raw, which is still a massive leap forward, by the way, from Title Update 3's no RNG set we did, which had 451. So it's nearly a 50 effective raw increase, without the active skill RNG, without an RNG Talisman. Just the reinforces on your Gogma weapon. Next, we essentially have the same concept here, but if you actually have an RNG Talisman, just to push it a little bit forward. But how far does it go forward? Not that much. But it does have an impact if you do have this talisman. So, Guardian Ebony Beta for the helm. Again, make sure it is transcended. The new Udra Gamma chest piece. The Guardian Ebony gloves in Beta. Also, again, make sure it's transcended. The new dahaad Gamma waist again. And now, Gogmazios' legs. This does matter whether it's in alpha or beta for whatever set bonus skill you get, but neither are relevant, so it's alpha or beta, whichever you have. But the RNG Talisman is this. 3 levels of crit eye with 1 level of weakness exploit. If you have any bonus 1 slots, that's awesome, but not required. The set itself will leave you with some extra 1 slots. These 2 where I have protection, and on the boots as well. Then an extra 2 from your talisman if you have them. On top of that, you will have an empty 2 slot decoration slot, which is where I've got a stamina surge level. And since we don't need evade window, since we're eating tumbler meal, that's better to go for. But in those slots, it's up to you. I would recommend constitution levels, or go defensive, something like Divine Blessing, or like Element Res based on what you're facing. It's flexible. Either way, we use these decorations to achieve this skill list. That is page 1 for you to take a look at. Here's page 2 to look at. Then we have the next page, and the next page. Pause where you need to. Let's compare the math real quick then. Again, 257 base raw, multiplied by 5% from guts, getting us to 269.85. We again have these flat increases, getting us to 334.85. Another 32% multiplier, thanks to white sharpness, brings us to 442. We now have 39% reliable affinity from these sources, thanks to the crit eye increase. And with the RNG Talisman allowing 1 more offensive slot, with us getting 1 more level of crit boost there, that gets us to crit boost 4. So it's a 37% damage increase, 39% of the time thanks to the affinity. Multiply that by our last number, and that gets you to 506 effective raw. But it goes to show how good the no RNG set actually is. But how can we push things as far as possible? Well, it's time to engage with the RNG that is the Gogma Artian weapons, with their group skills, combined with an RNG Talisman. So max RNG, max results. This requires your weapon then to have Gore Magala's Tyranny as its set bonus on the active skills, and Lord Soul as the group bonus. For the RNG Talisman, it's the same thing as before. We have 3 levels of crit eye, and the secondary skill is weakness exploit. And again, in the offensive decoration slot, we have 1 level crit boost. So that's the RNG of this set. Here's the equipment we're using. The Guardian Ebony Helm in Beta. Again, make sure it is transcended. The new Udra chest piece in Gamma. The Guardian Ebony Gloves in Beta. Again, make sure transcended. The new dahaad Gamma Waist. And the Gore Boots in Beta. If you really wanted to get rid of the RNG Talisman here, you could indeed again use the Adrenaline Rush 3 Talisman. And overall, you would actually gain to Adrenaline Rush there, but lose out on things like the 1 crit boost, the 3 crit eye. But it is an alternative if you want to go for that. Either way, we use these decorations to achieve this skill list. Here's the first page. Here's the next page. So we have the burst boost levels there. We have the 2 set of Magala, of course. Here's the next page where we see we've got Guts Tenacity. And the final page, that doesn't really matter. So let's take a look at the math and compare. 257 base raw. Multiplied by 5% thanks to Guts Tenacity, brings us to 269.85. We increase it by these flat increases, getting us to 332.85. Multiply that by 32% thanks to white sharpness, and you get to 439.36. We now have 62% reliable affinity, a nice injection there compared to before, from these sources. And crit boost 4, so 37% damage increase, 62% of the time from the affinity. Multiply that by a last number, and that gets you to a hefty 540 effective raw for dual blades. As a comparison, in Title Update 3, our max effective raw was 482. It's another huge jump there. So thank you to both Gogma and Arch-Tempered Jin dahaad. Pretty exciting. But now it's time to talk about element, as we've returned to form for dual blades at long last, with more of an element focus being actually worth it. This is against element weak targets, right? Where it will actually outperform the raw sets we've just covered. So we're starting now with the Gogma Artian element focus. This will require an element base, so let me just remind you of that. When upgrading to a Gogma Artian weapon, you have these 3 focuses. So for the raw ones we covered earlier, that was an attack focus, but now you want these element weapons to be element focused. As you can see, it modifies the affinity for a 5% loss, but then you gain the element. So just make sure you do that for your element weapons. For their reinforces then, we have this list. You have your sharpness EX, you have your 2 attack boost EX, and you have your attack boost 3. But in place of the other attack boost 3, you have affinity boost EX. You'll also note the active skills of Gore Tyranny and Lord Soul, same as before, as we'll cover when we get to that set. In regards to the decorations, it's much the same then. Ele attack 3 of the correct element for the weapon and the bonus line of handicraft. You crit boost 3, and you crit element 3 with a bonus line of handicraft. Again, if you're having sharpness issues, you can replace the crit element with razor sharp, but the crit element is going to be particularly good, and the increase of value you get is worth it. Let's begin with the no RNG version of the element sets. For this, we have the Gore helm in beta. We have the Gog chest piece. This can be alpha or beta. There's not really a difference between this specific slot. You have the Guardian ebony gloves. Make sure this is transcended for the increase of decoration slots. We have the Gog waist, specifically in alpha. This actually matters because the alpha version gives you the ebony odo power. And then we get the last bit of Gore, the 2-piece from the boots in beta. And the crafted talisman without RNG is your weakness exploit 1, the exploiter charm 2. Using these decorations then, we achieve this skill list. Here's the first page for you to have a look at. Here's the second page. You have a few 1 slots to work with, 3. I've just been putting in Constitution for the stamina help. You could go Divine Blessing or whatever you like. But now here's a look at the math just so we can see how it works out. 238 base raw now. These flat increases bring it to 301. Multiply it by your white sharpness and that gets you to 397.32. We have 65% reliable affinity from these sources, including that 1 EX roll of affinity on the weapon. And only 3 crit boost. That's a 34% damage increase 65% of the time. So you multiply that by a last number and you get a very respectable 485 effective raw. But in exchange, you're getting a lot more element to work with. So here's a quick look at the element. With this setup, we have 300 base element. Multiply it from these sources, bring you to 453.6. Then we have these flat increases, bringing you to 633.6. Let's debloat that to get to the true element and multiply that by 15% from white sharpness, bringing you to a very respectable 73 effective raw. So against any element weak target, this is just a better option. If you were going to change this set to include an RNG Talisman, but not worry about, your RNG Gogma yet, you just replace the Exploiter Charm with the familiar 3 crit eye, 1 weakness exploit talisman that we've looked at throughout the sets. Your offensive decoration slot could go towards crit boost, and if you have any bonus 1 slots, well, that's helpful. You will need to actually decorate in 1 weakness exploit to make up for the loss that you've had from the swap, so you'll give up the 1 burst that you decorated for. This will give you an edge in terms of raw, but lose you in terms of value for element. But it is a worthy trade if you can do this. But much more interesting is the best set of the day of this video, the Ele focused Gogma and RNG Talisman set. Quick reminder then for this, you want the Gore Magala's Tyranny and Lord Soul for your active skills on the weapon, that's important. For this set then, we have the new Udra Gamma helmet, the Gog chest piece, doesn't really matter if it's alpha or beta, there's no difference. The new Jin dahaad Gamma gloves for the 3 coalescence and weakness exploit, pretty incredible. We get the 2-piece of Gore from our weapon combined with the waist slot, so that's the Gore waist in beta. And then finally the Gog boots, we have them in alpha. I don't believe this matters because the secondary power is not going to actually activate. But this is of course with your talisman, the 3 crit eye, with the offensive slot going towards 1 crit boost. And then for the bonus skill, you have 1 weakness exploit or burst and then redecorate for whichever you end up with. If you wanted to make this set without the RNG Talisman, then you'd go for the Burst Talisman to give you 3 levels of Burst. You'd lose out on 3 crit eye and 1 crit boost there, but obviously you'd actually gain element, so it's not terrible. This set itself wasn't actually possible before Arch-Tempered Djinn, thanks to the gloves. So here are the decorations to see the list of skills. So that's for the first page. We have the next page here. Here's the next page and the last page, if you need to pause on those at any point. There is some flexibility here in the decorations, say the Stamina Surge, and of course the Constitution 1 slots. You could replace those with something you prefer. But let's take a look at the math to show how much of a step forward this is. 238 base raw multiplied by 5% from guts, getting you to 249.9. We have these flat increases, bringing us to 304.9. Then we multiply that by the white sharpness, getting us to 402.46. We have 79% reliable affinity, which is fantastic based on the sets today, from all of these sources. And of course, with the RNG Talisman, you have crit boost 4, so that's a 37% damage increase, 79% of the time. Multiply that by our last number, and that brings you to 520 effective raw. But then we have the element side of things. So for that, we start with 300 base element, multiply that from these sources, bringing you to 496.8. Then you have these flat increases, bring you to 656.8. We'll debloat that to get the true element, multiply that by white sharpness, getting you to 76 effective element, which is going to be absolutely incredible against Gog in phase 3 with Dragon particularly, but fantastic and more valuable than the raw against any relevantly weak element target. So to say the least, it's the best set of the day. So yeah, there you have it. That is our title update 4 plus Djinn dahaad update for Dual Blades. Now we finally had a chance to get to it. Pretty incredible stuff. The Djinn update for Dual Blades particularly good. I've been loving Dual Blades since the launch of Wilds, but all the quality of life and improvements they've made since like what, title update 2? And then we got more in 3 and we have again got more in 4 for some reason. It just feels so much easier these days to land your evades. Of course, to maintain the demon boost mode, now you can sheath it. All the way they increased the timer on it. This has been my favorite version of Dual Blades in Monster Hunter history so far, and I can't wait to see what they do in whatever expansion they bring out for this game. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.